So it was pretty shocking stuff. What's interesting is the Bangladeshi government is making it seem like this move that they made this past week to I guess give some greater union rights to workers there is a big deal. And Ambassador Cotter came to the Heritage Foundation in advance of this and was basically like, we don't need new laws. This was before the law came out, and he was saying we don't need further measures. We're sending inspectors in. What did he say that he was going to do? He essentially said that the improvements that they had been planning on, increasing the ranks of government inspectors and reaching out to local universities to figure out how to improve safety practices were enough. Not talking about third-party inspections from a neutral third party other than the government or the industries. Not talking about streamlining regulations, because as the New York Times has reported, there have been cases where a factory has been shut down by the government only to be brought online again by another government agency in Bangladesh.
That's the other thing is even this kind of bare bones labor law that the government just passed. You wonder how if that's going to actually have any teeth, given the amount of pressure that's just put to continue to drive labor costs down, and the amount of corruption between high-ranking members of the government and the government with these massive retailers and the massive textile industry and low cost and companies trying to take advantage of the low cost labor there. So you wonder just if it has any teeth to begin with.
I mean, I think that's a really good point, Cole, and that's something that Stephanie Luce, who's a labor professor at the City University of New York, has said. She was actually against the punitive action, and I don't agree, but I could see the perspective. She was against punishing the government with removal from the generalized system of preferences because she made that exact argument that this is a supply chain issue, that the people that have the real power here are the Western governments that give preferences to North American and European retailers in this department that put this kind of supply chain pressure on local manufacturers. And I have to agree, but at the end of the day, I don't know that this. I mean, look, we've seen that this pressure point has had some impact, and it may be better than nothing. I mean, it also makes it all the more repugnant, and certainly the government's also giving cover to these North American retailers by supporting their alliance.
I saw a fascinating chart about this. Showing that Bangladesh has this emerging critical role here in the global capitalist economy because of its low labor costs. And you look at China, which is regarded as this, as being the boom for all this. China's labor costs have shot up in the last 10 years or so significantly. So Bangladesh, Vietnam, this whole southeastern region of Asia is going to be a critical part of global capitalism. And this is where goods are manufactured at the cheapest costs, and so you have this intense pressure that's being put on all these governments to loosen regulations, to fight back against collective bargaining, union agreements. So it's
a very, very difficult situation, and I think that I appreciate it from that perspective, from I guess some folks on the ground there's perspective, but I think there comes a time in every country's development and history when an industry has matured enough that they no longer need to throw human rights under the bus completely in order to get the benefits of industry being there. And I think it's a little bit absurd to say that the labor standards would go up so much in Bangladesh so rapidly that the garment industry would be devastated and people would be out of work. But that's exactly the kind of threat that they were making here. I think what we'll see, and here's what's great about this. There are so many just about all of the European retailers, if I'm not mistaken, with perhaps a couple exceptions, have signed on to the labor preferred plan, the Accord. And so we'll see just how hard it is for them to keep their operations in Bangladesh.
Yeah.
But it raises serious questions about creating a bottom floor on this and the kind of game of whack-a-mole, because it is a race to the bottom right now, and presumably another country could come along and say, well, Bangladesh wants to treat its workers better. We'll sweep up those jobs, thanks very much. But
I mean, this is a classic argument of industry. We're seeing. I mean, I don't want to draw too much of a parallel here, but for those of us in D.C., there's been a big push here, living wage bill, right? This is a constant argument that industries use to try to drive down wages even more. That if you put up some kind of standard, that they're just going to take their business elsewhere. And the fact is, like Bangladesh right now in the global economy is some of the lowest labor costs. So I don't know if that threat actually.
There's a lot of room there for those living standards to increase, probably without jeopardizing those jobs. And I think you're absolutely right that 90% of the time when corporations use that argument, it's a phrase that I can't say on syndicated commercial radio, but it's not true.
Right.
in the slightest. It's extremely cynical, but I think it raises, I think that all of us struggle with this idea of how do you stop the race to the bottom, and I think that's something that we're looking for.